Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Welcome to another episode of the Agency Review series. Today I'm with Tom from SD Lab. Tom, how's it going?
Man, it's going great, Eddie. I'm very excited to be here once again with y'all and excited to dive in. But good to see you.
It's been a minute since our last show, that's for sure. And today we have something very interesting for people in the audience. You have definitely not been idle. You've been improving your services. And today we're going to talk about SD Lab, appointment setting service for SaaS and tech companies with ACVs over 10K. Help me unpack a little bit what this means, Tom.
Yeah, so, been going on almost 3 years now with the SD Lab, and it's just taken, some good refinement, kind of looking at where we fit the most effectively in, right? As we know, outsourced lead gen can be rocky. It takes a lot of collaboration, takes a lot to lift an outbound motion off the ground. And in the last 6 to 8 months, what we really found is these SaaS and tech companies that realistically have an ACV over about 10K. Now, it can be roughly down to 5. If you are listening to this, it is an option, but realistically, we need that ACV because, again, we're part-time. We're not a full extension team for you, but we are managing through the tech, through the process, weekly syncs to help you get, anywhere from 10 to 20 plus sales qualified meetings a month. These are not appointments. These aren't just coffee chats. These are actually sales qualified based on your criteria, right, that you provide. With that, we want that return of investment to be about 3x. So we charge anywhere from 4K a month to 12K a month, just kind of depends on how we package it all up. But we want you at the end of the 3 to 6 months, see that ROI that makes the most sense, right? We bring you 20 meetings in a month, you're closing hopefully 20% of those. Those ACVs will give you, that 3x return. And so that's what we've just kind of found is that as much as we want to help the founders starting up, trying to get their outbound going, if they've got a really low ACV, then we get into this volume play and it can be a little tougher because we're not a full-time team, right? We're not really in the trenches there. We are only doing about 20 to 25 hours a week of coverage. So got to make it worth and a win-win for both parties. And then we found that SaaS and tech space does really well. Services gets a little clunky and a couple, small end like product-led companies where, their ACV or their MRR is like $750 a month. Just kind of gets into hard expectations. And again, we want this to come off as an investment, not an expense. You invest in us, in return, you're going to get a sales motion that is scalable and repeatable, and you're going to get that ROI of about 3x based on the relationship that we put together with you.
I love that, Tom. One of the things that's the most important for people in the audience to understand is that these type of services are not a one-size-fits-all type of service. It's definitely not for everybody, not only because of the business model, as you mentioned, services, or because of the industry or location where they want to get more appointments from. So in this case, why don't we learn a little bit more about your audience? Let's start by talking about what were your customers today using before they found you? How were they trying to get appointments? And then we'll jump into what was the issue with the way they were doing it.
So a lot of them are referrals and word of mouth network, right? A lot of these organizations have been able to be successful in getting off the ground early on. They had network to tap into. They started getting referrals from some of the work that they were doing, but we all know what happens. That will start to dry up, right? So a lot of it was that. A lot of it was hiring a player coach kind of role, which we all know can kind of just depends on how good you hire to somebody to be able to run a sales motion plus also be doing the trench work. So they didn't have budget. They hired this person hoping for them to kind of solve their problem for them. A lot of marketing. They were doing just marketing channels, talked to a lot of CMOs. They're just running ads, driving stuff through that way. They might have maybe set up some automation. A lot of them are like, hey, I'm using LinkedIn automation. I'm trying to just send DMs, see what that does for us. Or we've been doing email structure, just trying to send kind of a volume play of emails. And that's kind of what typically, triggers them to come to us and say, we need help because it's starting to dry up or it's actually not effective for us.
Gotcha. So it sounds like it's not just fresh out of the oven companies trying to do their first initiative or identify maybe even product market fit, but more like companies that have been trying to do that already, may have an SDR team, may have outsourced to a different agency, but are just not finding the right traction that they want for their solution. Now, help me understand, what are some of the main challenges that they were experiencing that they have now alleviated by working with your service?
So with that, right, and even to your point you mentioned with the market fit, right, will help you there. We have a couple that we've done that with is they just want to test. We worked with an automotive company and they had a new product offering for the market. They just wanted to test before they put all this money into it, right? They kind of wanted to see, is this something people would buy? What are the kind of the conversations like? And again, they can't do that volume. They don't have the team to get to that volume they needed. So what happens in a lot of this, and when they're using these alternatives, to your point, they might have already been trying another agency. What I get all the time is, well, I'm blind to the whole process. I don't know what messaging they're sending. I don't know who they're targeting. They just said they'd get us appointments. It's not really working. If I ask them for activity or targeting, anything, they can't really give it to me, right? Or they're sending coffee chat emails out to people, and the meetings that we're getting are just not what we're hoped for. So that does happen. So they deal with that. No collaboration, really left, kind of set it to forget it, and they're not being involved in the process. Then it gets too late. The next bill comes and they're like, well, we don't want to pay that. We didn't get anything. And then the company can't justify the work they've done because they don't have any records along the way. The other piece is when they're relying on word of mouth and network, that's great too, but it will dry up. Right? It will.
Right.
It always is how it goes. About a year or two, you can get under that. And then it starts kind of, you got to go outbound. You got to instead of being reactive, you got to go proactive and start reaching out to your TAM and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We have some case studies now. Let's go out to the market instead of waiting for them to come to us or coming to us through, inbound or word of mouth. So another reason they'll come here is because that is a challenge. And it's a challenge to scale. How do you scale that, right? So that's the other piece. And a lot of times it's just a lack of expertise and knowledge. I'm talking to CMOs who are trying to do stuff and they don't know sales, or technical engineer or technical founders that built a great product or service, but don't know a thing about sales or like an outbound motion at all. They don't even know the tech. They're using their main domain and they're burning it as they're kind of ripping through cold email. They don't get it. And then all of a sudden their proposals are in the dark. People are like, hey, your message went to my spam. Now they're running into all of this. And they don't even know how to convey a message in an email to go outbound, let alone scale it. Nor do they know the tech to use. So it's a lot of that, right? They're really great chefs in the kitchen. They make great food, but they don't know how to run a restaurant. It's a whole different animal. And so those are some of the challenges. It's just a lack of knowledge, the lack of scalability, the lack of time. The other thing is a lot of them want to get an outbound motion, but they don't have $10,000 to $12,000 a month to put into an SDR team. Because think about it, get an SDR, $5,000 to $6,000 a month, maybe $4,000 if you get lucky, or you go international and you go a little bit cheaper, but you're not going to get a full quality rep. Then you got to get the tech stack. Well, too much noise there. What tech do I really need? Do I need to go to Salesforce immediately or HubSpot? Like, what's the CRM process? And then you got benefits and payroll, and you've got training and enablement. And these founders and these orgs are like, I don't have time for all that. I just don't, but we need outbound. And if you want an experienced SDR to come in, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. And then it turns into the player coach thing we talked about, right? Where now they're trying to go and do the outbound motion, but also prop up your sales motion as a whole as a strategist and visionary for that. So all of those are kind of those challenges where then they find us and they're like, okay, so you have the 18 years of sales experience. You've built and scaled 4 teams from scratch. You're completely tapped into the outbound space and can help us find clarity. You're going to manage and run and coach the SDR. You've already got a dedicated bench of SDRs that are doing the job, that know how to have a conversation, how to qualify, how to close, and ask for a meeting, all those things. And you're going to be managing them. Yep. And the right approach. And then you've got all the tech stack. You've got the partners. You have the kind of industry best already provided. And it's a working system that potentially we can take over and take off your hands and go internal. Most of the time, in about 3 to 6 months, my clients can go internal now, and then they can take all of that and get the keys to the kingdom and then run it, right? They get it. But in the meantime, we've got all of that, and it's a really quick retainer monthly, half the cost of what you're looking at. I'm bringing an SDR and building it out all internally. And so then we got weekly collaboration. You're getting insights on everything we're doing. We meet once a week, even with the SDR in attendance. You're getting an outreach report every week. All the campaign writing and emails we write are being cleared by you first. So it has your language, your terminology. We apply best practices, but this is a done for you, but a done with you approach, right? We're going to do it all. I've got everything set up for you, but it's going to be done together. You're going to know exactly why we're winning and also why we're losing. If we're not getting the meetings and we're not seeing the trajectory we hope for, you're going to know why. Well, Tom, what's happening in those conversations? What are our prospects saying, or what type of collateral could you use? And so, now they get a real outbound motion. They've got a real leader over top of everything, and they're involved in the process with us the whole way through.
It sounds like with this service, they're not just delegating the whole sales function to you, or maybe they are, but they're not in the dark as to what's going on. I'm just dumping money over to this agency in hopes that something comes over, but actually they have visibility of how the engine's being built precisely for them and their business and their audience, right? Right message, right people at the right time, and how all of those cogs are moving to produce the meetings that they expect to have, and that should be much more easier to convert than the type of meetings that they were getting
100%.
before.
100%. And even in the handoff process. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to unpack a little bit more about it. Let's jump into the next section here, which are about the task deliverables and people involved. Why don't you walk us through what an onboarding would look like, what type of elements go into the service from the standpoint of tech stack, AI, humans, all the way up to the reports that they're going to get in the end, and maybe some idea of the time frames in which they can expect to start onboarding, start activity, go live, and probably start to see the first drip of appointments coming through on the calendar.
Yeah. So how it all works is, we do a 3-month term because outbound takes time, right? Obviously it's month to month, but we need that 3-month commit because the first month or so is getting feet wet, setting everything up. So initially we start with a discovery call and an onboarding call. It takes about 60 to 90 minutes, and that's going to align on the goals, the ideal customer profile, the messaging, the success metrics. What is the qualified opportunity? Where are we booking these, calls, and for who? That entire process. Then we're going to deploy the infrastructure. We're going to deploy and configure that entire tech stack, right? Apollo, Zoom Info, Lead Magic, Instantly, Maildoso for your emails. We've got the parallel dialer through Salesfinity, and then we got Lead Magic for mobile validation, email validation, and then we're going to warm up the domains for you. So it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks before we deploy email outreach, because we try to protect our clients, like I was saying, with burning domains and using their own. As we're going to be the ones bullying through the volume and testing this stuff out, we don't want to hurt your business. And so we are going to set up a completely separate infrastructure that'll redirect to your main site, but we are going to have to warm those up. So that'll take about 2 weeks from the day we set those up. Then we're going to do some lead list building and enrichment. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. One question. Do your clients have to bring their own email domains? Like, do they need to buy them in advance, or is that something they get through the service?
They get through the service. We have our partners. We'll set it all up. They get about 10 domains and then about 40 mailboxes. Wow. We don't have to use all of them. Just kind of depends on the TAM. We obviously can go bigger. I just got a client just a couple of weeks ago that's doing 400 mailboxes because they're doing about 500,000 emails a month. They're a market research organization. So we're going to be doing that with them. And so, again, we want to keep everything separate from them, but our initial package is about 40 mailboxes, completely separate. I set up all the infrastructure. I'll put together all those records. I'll create those boxes for you. So that's all ready to go. And then we'll queue that warm-up process, which takes, about 2 weeks in order to give us the best footing off the ground. Otherwise, if we start day one with them, they'll instantly get burned because Google and Outlook will assume they're spam, and it's not going to go well for anybody. So we typically wait 2 weeks. That doesn't mean, though, we're not doing efforts in that first 2 weeks. in this process, from discovery call to that 2-week period, we're going to go through the infrastructure setup. We're going to start building the list. We're already going to start cold calling because we have that in order right off the jump. We just can't bring in the email element until we get those boxes up, right? And get them officially kind of registered in Google and Outlook so we can get those off. But by week 2 of onboarding, we're basically on the phones ready to go. Should start seeing maybe 1 or 2 wins in that second week. And then by week 3, we're bringing in the multi-channel, and now we're doing the email and the calling, and we'll deploy those boxes. As far as go ahead.
Yeah, one thing that I heard you mention earlier was that they get a rep, and this rep is going to be starting in the starting price at around 20 hours a week. But I also heard you say that you are going to use parallel dialers, and with all these mailboxes, it really doesn't sound like there's a compromise like, hey, I'm only going to get half the productivity of a human.
No.
It sounds like you're going to really get full or maybe even more based on just one person clicking and dialing by themselves because of the technology that you're implementing.
That's it, right? That's it, right? Is we're doing about 20 to 25 hours a week. This isn't a full-time rep. We can do that. We do have packaging. That's why our range is from 4 to 12K a month, because we can give you an 8-hour rep, a full-time rep, but ideally we do about 20 to 25 hours, but we maximize that. In a typical, because again, you're only going to get 4 hours out of a rep, even internally, because burnout, there's a lot going on. They're not just going to cold call all day for 8 hours, right? And eventually they're going to burn themselves out. We give you 4 solid straight hours of the best work that rep can do, keeps them fresh, keeps them in it. And with the parallel dialer, an average rep on a day manually can do 100 to 150 dials a day. That's a high end. Most are doing like 40 to 50. And that's not good volume, especially if you have, pretty large targets you got to hit, where we could do a couple hundred in that same 4-hour period, because we can do 1 dial at a time, all the way up to 5 dials at a time. We're using mobile validation. We're enriching those to give you the best. We average between a 3 to 15% connect rate, just depending on the data and your ICP. And then we can have about a 50 to 70% conversation rate. And then the reps are ideally about 1 in every 10 convos booking a meeting. So roughly 5 to 10% conversion from conversation to booked meetings. So it's very healthy. And you're getting this extreme amount of volume out of, between the mailboxes going out daily, between the calls, that's all giving you what your one rep internally could do in a 40-hour work week. We're doing it in 20 to 25 hours. And that way you're, getting your results, you're getting quick data, you're getting a lot of data. All the calls are recorded, so you're understanding what's going on. You can review those. All the emails are tracked, all that good stuff. And that volume is what's changing the game versus an internal rep maybe doing 50 to 100 dials, maybe sending 30 emails a day, if that, right? All of that in play, we can build it out and maximize that 20 to 25 hours to basically be a 40-hour work week if you were to, have it internal.
Right. So the mailboxes are included. The technology like parallel dialers, which are no cheap licenses, are included. The data, the leads that you're going to generate for the campaign, do you give your clients access to the list before the campaign starts, just so they can take a look at?
Yeah, so that part too is in the list building. That's always a common question we get is between, Zoom Info, Lead Magic, Apollo, we can provide it, right? So we can build your prospect list based on the approved ICP that you give us, and we can enrich and validate that. Or you can come to the table and say, hey, we have 1,500 people that we're trying to prospect right now. We don't have a team doing it. These are people that last 6 months have expressed interest in an ad or inbounded, but we haven't closed. Then we could take that on for you. Again, we'll still validate it and enrich it, make sure it's all there. But we can either build that ICP list for you and with you. Again, once I build it, I share it to you so you can scrub it, look through it, make sure there's no, maybe we shouldn't call this company, we'll suppress any current customers that you have, making sure it's all clean. You give us the okay, we load that into our dialer and emails, and we go off to the races. So you know exactly who we're targeting, why we're targeting, and making sure it's in alignment with what you're looking for.
Fantastic. Now, let me jump into the last question I have here for you today, which is around the KPIs that your ideal client should use to measure you. Let's talk about the outcomes, the success stories. Walk us through a couple of situations of what you've been able to achieve for your clients.
So that's the fun part, right? Is again, as we discussed, it kind of varies. Not even going to sugarcoat it. Not every relationship has worked out, right? We've taken a few. Market just wasn't there, right? We did some niche oil and gas company. We only were doing about 5 to 7 meetings a month for, but it was very niche federal government organization. So that 5 to 7 was very fruitful for them because that could lead to $1 million deal for them, right? It's a bigger thing. Where on a smaller end company like automotive, we were doing 20 to 25 meetings a month for, and we were a lot more transactional. We try to aim for a meeting a day because I've been in this game long enough, and 4 hours of cold calling with, getting 10 to 12 conversations in the day with that volume and that connect rate, we should be able to convert one. So we always try to say about 10 to 20 meetings a month is what you can expect. That's what we typically hit. Sometimes we can over succeed depending on that connect rate, that ICP. KPIs, we're doing north of 200 to 500 dials a day. Some are getting up to 700 dials a day if that connect is a little bit lower, right? It just kind of plays around. But you're getting about 200 to 500 dials in a session, 10, 12 conversations out of that, us getting a meeting a day. We try to average about 3 to 5 a week. I don't look at it per day thing, but if at the end of the month we can get you about 10 to 20, we're doing really well. You're converting about 20% of those. We're seeing the success. But we've had some where if you're not collaborative, you're not working with us on the ICP, you're just kind of setting and forgetting it and hoping we're just deliver for you, it can fall, right? And it starts, because again, we also connect you via Slack to where we have ongoing asynchronous communication. So the rep is sharing, hey, I got this objection. Hey, this is a call I had. We want you involved, right? Helping us. If we don't get that, I can only coach so much. I don't work for the company either, right? We're setting this up. We're doing our best, but we need your collaboration. But most of our clients see about a 20 to 30% lift in what they were doing before us. And we try to do about a meeting a day as our North Star, doing call coaching every day with the team, making sure you're in the loop on what's going on. And like we talked about earlier, if we're not seeing those results, you know why. You know exactly what's happening on the calls, what the objections we're running into, how do we refine that? And if we're winning, you know that part too. But about 1 a day, 3 to 5 a week, just kind of depends on the ICP, the market. But we typically can hit those numbers pretty on point 95% of the time, as long as that collaboration is there and we're working together on the motion.
Sounds amazing. Now, I'm pretty sure that if someone in the audience is considering this type of service, they can definitely go ahead and book you, have some time with your team. You can find the SD Lab through the CloudTask Marketplace. And once they have that session with you and share with you all the details about their company, ACV, ICPs, what they've done in the past, etc., you'll be able to pinpoint or narrow down much more the expectations into what their specific use case could expect, how much it would cost, right? Because there's a range starting maybe at the 4 or 5K a month going upwards. But yeah, you can always narrow down once you learn more about a specific client situation, what would their outcome would look like. So that's something interesting always. Tom, is there something else you want to share with the audience?
No, I think that is really it. It is a collaboration. We are your growth partner. We're not, ideally it's framed like an appointment setting agency to where we're just slinging meetings. We do want to help you in a 3 to 6 month run, understand, do you have an outbound motion? Can it be successful? So that when you move internal, that is an investment, not an expense. You're not waiting 3 to 6 months to see if the rep will figure it out. You're not wasting your time, all that coaching, all that tech, making mistakes. We want to be your growth partner in this and ultimately help you land more sales qualified opportunities for your company and pipeline.
Fantastic, Tom. Well, there you have it. If you are curious and want to learn more about the SD Lab, go over to the CloudTask Marketplace, search for SD Lab, and you'll find Tom and his team there. You'll be able to book a session, and you will be well treated. You will be guided through this journey that is definitely not an easy one. Tom, it's been a pleasure to have you again on the show, and hope to catch you in the future.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Bye-bye.